Okay, minor technical blip at the start, but we're through that now. Welcome to the latest in our series of NEC Users Group webinars. Today we're looking at early warnings. In my opinion, the most important part of the whole contract, and we'll find out why that is a little bit later. You'll have seen the instructions, joining instructions. Hopefully you've all got lots of questions to ask of us. Please ask your questions at any time during the webinar itself. We'll collect them, we'll answer that which we can today. Those that we can't, as we normally do, we'll follow up in the session after this. So, we've got the panel members today. Myself, I'm Robert Gerard, NEC Group Secretary. I had to look at the screen to remind myself of who I am. And I'm very pleased to introduce Richard Patterson, Mark McDonald, definitely an NEC expert, a good friend of mine, and a real NEC enthusiast. So we're really lucky to have you today, Richard.
Okay, thank you. Keen to be here, and happy, I hope, to share some of the stuff that you and I know about. That's me, a bit of background so you know who's talking. Do contracts for a living, obviously. I do lots of work in NEC, but also do work internationally where I have to use some other contracts. So we get a bit of balance between NEC and other stuff. I can see how to do things badly as well as how to do things well with NEC.
Same time shirts on the picture.
Same time shirt, almost, yeah.
Very impressive.
You'll be glad I've got rid of the photo with the phone and that sort of thing. Yeah. So the plan for today is to cover what's a relatively simple clause in the contract about early warnings. What they are, why we've got them, how we notify them. We'll then look at the risk register, who's got to manage the risk register, how that works. Sanctions. It's not just a nice thing. There are some real sanctions if you don't do early warnings, those are important. And then we'll finish off with something which comes up often in training, where, apologies for the acronyms, technical queries and so-called requests for information are things that fly around project sites, particularly construction sites, but I'm sure in other projects as well. Are they early warnings? Are they not early warnings? We'll talk you through that. Okay?
Okay, so main focus is the ECC, Engineering Construction Contract, and much of what you're about to say, very similar for other forms of NEC contract.
Absolutely. So, as we were saying earlier, with the exception of the adjudication contract and the framework contract, all the other NEC contracts have a clause about early warning. But it's pretty much the same words.
Okay.
Okay. So, as if we hadn't said that already, all NEC contracts, and appropriately, it's sometimes called the jewel in the crown of the NEC. Very simple, but it is fundamental. Running the early warnings properly and the risk reduction meetings that we'll talk about is absolutely critical to getting the mutual trust and cooperation that clause 10.1 calls for actually working. It's the gift of the project manager and his facilitation and people skills to make this work. Yeah. And that's what we'll talk about a little bit more as we go through.
Okay.
Okay. So what is it? What is an early warning? Rob and I have a training tip. We often end up with a training flip chart which just says RT something C, read the contract. And that's all it is. Read the contract. This is clause 16 in the ECC, the Engineering Construction Contract. And very simply, the contractor and the project manager give an early warning by notifying the other as soon as either becomes aware of any matter which could. There's then bullet points to do with delayed completion, increase the total of the prices, and so on. Basically, anything that could cause a problem for our project, we are required to talk to each other. Yeah. Interestingly, in that sentence, don't forget that I've asked this again in training. It actually says shall give an early warning. People have to realise that the whole contract works because of 10.1. First sentence of 10.1. Everybody shall act as stated. That shall is in that sentence. You shall give this early warning as soon as you're aware. And that's all it is. It's that simple.
Okay, so a couple of things to pick on there. As soon as, what do you think that means?
Okay, the contract doesn't say any more about that. As soon as either becomes aware. I'm not a lawyer, as you know, Rob, I'm definitely not a lawyer, but I am led to believe that that does relate to a managerial level within the organisations that are parties or working, sorry, not parties, the contractors are party, clearly, project manager is the administrator, but as soon as a management level person is aware, then the full contract says, the clause in front of you says, they shall give the early warning. If it ever came push 10 to shove, you'd be looking for evidence where you really were aware of that on Wednesday, therefore you should have given me the early warning on Wednesday.
Okay, so the as soon as has a timeline attached to it, and I think you picked on the awareness thing, and the other question I was going to ask is, who is deemed to have the level of, I don't know, expertise or you know, to elevation in an organisation to be aware.
I don't think you have to check with the lawyers if there's a right answer. I think certainly the site agent from a contractor's side, possibly a senior foreman, at that sort of level within the organisation, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, don't disagree with that. Okay, and interesting only talked about the contractor and project manager. Of course, we have a supervisor and employer.
Very, very good point. And of course, the contract tells us what people have to do. The contract doesn't. This is all it says. It could say the employer and the supervisor may give an early warning. It doesn't say that. I think that's just to make sure that these issues are channeled through the project manager from the employer's side of that contractual fence, just to manage it properly, rather than having early warnings flying around from all different parties. That's my understanding of why it says only the project manager. But clearly, on a well-run project, the project manager is talking daily with supervisor and with employer, and if there are other things that need raising, the project manager will give the early warning. Should give it, or shall give the early warning.
Okay, and of course the list of matters which you must know early warning contained clause 16.1. I always think they're quite negative. You know, that it's about problem things, isn't it? The price could go up, or if completion is delayed, for example. So they're negative things. What about positive things? What about opportunity? Can you use this process for?
I absolutely think you can. I don't see any reason why not. But as we'll see in a minute, the contract has this requirement to give early warning of these certain things and some punishment for not giving these early warnings. So again, the contract could have said, and you might have an early warning to have a chat about a positive thing. But as we know, when they drafted the NEC, they kept it as brief as possible and didn't litter it with what would seem to be unnecessary. I think, and I'm sure we've got good examples of where either side sees the benefit of the early warning and the production process to take on board good ideas as well as the warnings. It's interesting, if you look carefully at 16.1, those warnings, the first one is increase the total of the prices. Now, the only thing that's going to increase the total of the prices is something which, if it happened, would be a compensation event. And I think one thing we must emphasise to everybody is that whilst there's some linkages, early warnings are very, very different from compensation events. A common misconception. So this is something that's the clue is in the word early. It hasn't happened. Therefore, let's talk about it because we might mitigate the risk. First bullet point, increase the total prices. The second bullet point is delay completion. A delay completion could be something which is also a compensation event, but it could be just something where either side has got a problem. So it makes it more positive to talk about it, see if we can help each other out with the problem.
People often put early warning and compensation into the same sort of sentence, but so try and tease them away, try and recognise that actually two separate processes trying to achieve entirely different things.
Absolutely. We'll see a little bit later whether they're key linkages, but fundamentally they are separate processes. Okay?
Absolutely.
So let's move on to what this early warning might look like. And for this slide, we've taken as an example the early warning pro forma in the NEC's own guidance notes on communications. And it's very simple. We need a date. When was it sent? Who's it to? In this case, the county council, presumably acting for the project manager. What clause, good practice under NEC communications, have a clause number, and we can quote both clauses at each other. That's right.
It's not being too contractual.
It's not being contractual. Well, it is being contractual, but contractual in a positive sense. So we should have a 16.1 there somewhere. What's the matter? In this case, as you can see, we're advised that there's been a bit of a problem with the testing of pre-issued bridge beams. But how big a problem? What are we going to do with it? I don't know. Let's just get it on the register and then we'll talk about it. And obviously, who's it come from? That's all early warning needs to be. Absolutely straightforward and simple.
Okay, so pick on the point you knew sort of nearly mentioned, I've seen forms a little bit more complicated than this that ask for things like what time impact will it have, what cost impact will it have,
Yeah.
how can you solve it, Mr. Contractor, i.e.
Yeah.
don't just tell me the problem, actually go away and solve it.
Yeah. I've seen one large client who should know better wanting a report attached to the early warning on the options and the cost. No. Keep it simple. Just get it on the register. We'll talk about it. That's the whole essence of early warning.
I always think by adding criteria, you must answer these questions before you notify the early warning. You can actually put the contractor in breach because he's actually obliged to notify as soon as aware. And if you're saying to him, but hang on a minute, jump through these or over these hurdles, etc.
The team has got to get this process sorted so that it's a 1-2 minute activity to notify.
So quick and slick.
Just get it on the risk register.
And what happens if I'm the project manager? Let's say I'm Mr. Williams and I'm on receipt of this. What do I do then? Do I reply to it and say thank you very much, or I'm not interested, or no thank you, or
none of the above, Rob?
Okay.
As you know very well, but it's good to give the thought. As you know very well, the project managers all we have to do with the early warning is put it on this thing called the risk register. That's all that has to happen. There's no reply. It won't hurt to pick up the phone and say, what's all this about? Then make sure we know what the issue is. But the whole point is to put it on the risk register, and we'll show you on the next slide what that thing looks like. Okay. Let's move on. Yeah.
And even from the contractor's notification, whenever it's raising it effectively, pick the phone at the same time, pressing the go button.
Yeah.
And just sending you this, we need to meet, or we need to do something with this soon.
Absolutely. We'll see that the following clause in 16, either party has the opportunity to instruct, hard, strong word, instruct the other to pitch up to a risk reduction meeting. Yeah. So we can have the contractor instructing Mr. Williams, who thought he was the employer and wasn't going to get instructed by his contractor, but he can be instructed to go and have a risk reduction meeting. One thing we should say also, Rob, is that out there in the industry, a lot of clients don't understand them. They still see it perceived as being a setup for a claim. Yeah. One problem, it isn't. It's just, as we're saying, a chance to talk about something. And secondly, employers and their project managers on their behalf are, in my opinion, often reluctant to give the early warnings. If they've got a problem with getting some drawings out, they tend to say, oh, it's just hope, let's not mention it. So I think a good employer, a good project manager will set the scene by using the early warning process positively themselves.
Which is an interesting point, because most early warnings that I've seen in practice come from the contractor side, not from the client side. But that's crazy, because surely most problems, most change probably come from the project manager.
Absolutely.
Via the employer.
Absolutely.
Okay, brilliant.
So let's move on to see what the risk register looks like. Don't get too scared by that long list. We'll take you through it, and you're not supposed to be able to read it either, so don't worry. Firstly, top tip, capital letters read the contract. So let's go and see what a risk register is. It's a defined term. It is just a register, 11.2.14, a register of the risks which are listed in the contract data. Remember, there's a couple of places from either side to get this thing started. And then risks which project manager or contractor has notified as an early warning matter. It's a list of stuff, early warnings. It includes a description of the risk and the actions which are to be taken to avoid or mitigate the risk. Or reduce the risk, I should say. So those are the two columns that have to be in the risk register. That's all that have to be there. The other ones are ones that I'm recommending, others have recommended as good things to help manage the whole process.
Okay, so you must have those two. You might have some if you think it's relevant for your project. If you choose it.
Absolutely, but the thing is to make sure it's not getting overly complex. Some people will say there's too many on here. Let's just go through them. So first off, where did it come from? Was it CD1 or CD2, contract part 1 or part 2, or was it early warning number 24? When was it notified? Where did it come from? That's just a good trick to see where it's come from in the system, from contractor or project manager. We're going to keep this register updated, so we ought to keep a track of when this row was last updated. And then the actions, fine, but who's going to do it? And I think it's good practice to separate them out by the organisation first. But then, as we all know from our meetings, if you don't give an action to an individual, then it gets done. By when, ideally, is this thing still live? If not, we can put a no in the box and then filter out all the ones that are not live, but they're still there on the system in the record, if you like. And then the last two columns are purely optional, but an active, well-informed project manager will use this thing to run the risk reduction meetings. So very easy to put a column for, are we going to talk about it this time? 1 or 0, yes or no. Then we can filter the column, filter with a spreadsheet to whether it gets talked about at this meeting. And then why not go, once you've got that list of things for this meeting, put them in 1 to 10, whatever order you want to deal with them, and then straight away you've got your agenda. Your risk reduction meeting, it can either be a special one for this particular issue, instructed for a particular thing, or any good project should have a routine risk reduction meeting, and a starter would be at least, well, most projects would start off with doing that once a week. And then this is your tool, a simple spreadsheet, projection, project it up on the wall in the site meeting room, update the minutes and the actions as you go along. So this replaces what in the old days we used to have minutes of these meetings. I often talk about progress meetings. You ask people in a training course how much time you spend talking about progress in a progress meeting. What do you reckon, Rob? How long? What
Not too long.
Normally about 5% of a progress meeting about progress, the rest of it about problems.
Yeah,
so
looking forward.
A well-run NEC project will take the second half of that progress meeting and run it using the risk register. That's my suggestion. And away we go. So it's that simple, but getting people to talk to each other. I mean, what we haven't said on here is the words in clause 16. At the risk reduction meeting, those who attend cooperate, making and considering proposals, seeking solutions, deciding on actions, and updating the risk register.
So that's the creative bit.
That's the creative bit. That's where
this is about capturing a problem, notifying the other party, housing it on this thing called a risk register.
Absolutely.
Now we can be
that's where
adults, professional.
Absolutely. And that's where the project manager needs a good dose of soft skills, as we call them. The soft skills, which are really the hard skills to master, but to actually get people, a well-run meeting will look at this risk. Firstly, go around the table and make sure everybody knows what we're talking about, information phase, before you start jumping into what problems it might cause, and then jump into how you might go about mitigating that particular risk. That's the idea.
Okay, so it's almost a case of perhaps optioneering. So maybe option number 1 is do nothing. Do nothing is always an option. Let nature take its course. You know, and say what time and or cost and or quality outcomes might that have, all the way through to do everything, or
absolutely. But importantly, we are pre-compensation. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
If it's happened, and we're talking about how do we manage the compensation event for best purpose, that's fine. But that's over in the compensation event meeting, which isn't articulated in the contract, but that's how it's got to work. This is the early warning meeting.
So the key wording is avoiding or reducing. You know, that's what we're trying to do. Avoid or reduce. As we said earlier, there's no barrier and opportunities through this process, but the key focus of the contract is avoiding or reducing those things that could affect time, cost, or quality.
And what we find is that even on, can I possibly mention this, contracts run, or projects run with contracts other than NEC?
No.
Sorry, okay, sorry, Rob. I'll move on. No, what I was going to say was some people import the general process of running their project in this way rather than writing minutes every day.
Yeah.
It's a better way of running a project.
Even governments use that language after the banking crisis. It's a good process, though, isn't it? It's a good thing, you know.
Absolutely. But if you do a half-day NEC training course, it will say all what we've said, and we'll stop there. You know, it encourages collaborative risk management, is what we say. But what you need to move on to is what if we don't do it? So simple slide now here with one of the key threads in the NEC. You might know there's no cross-references anywhere in the NEC contract, or there's some things where you have to know the links. This is a key one. If there's no early warning, 61.5, we're jumping into the 6, that's a signal that we're talking compensation now. If the project manager notifies a compensation, 61.5 allows him to say, oh, but you really should have given me an early warning. And he can say that as he asks for a quotation. 61.5, he notifies the contractor that he should have given the early warning. Then we have this wonderful clause 63.5, which is the real teeth of early warning, and this is why the contractor is really seriously incentivized to give his early warnings, otherwise he's going to have problems. Did we put the words on? Yes, we did put the words on. Next slide. I'll come to the actual words in a moment. So that's one real incentive. Also, if you are under one of the cost-based contracts, option C, D, E, F of the UCC, then 11.225 is disallowed cost. And one of the elements of disallowed cost is costs which would have been avoided if you gave me the early warning.
Okay. So both of those are about the sanctions upon the contractor, aren't they? For not giving or giving a late early warning. What about the project manager? What if the project manager gives a late early warning? What are the sanctions there?
Good question. As ever, the contract is silent about that. There is no explicit remedy in the contract for the project manager not giving an early warning. But the project manager should be believing in the process, and his employer should be expecting his project manager to be believing in making the process work. And therefore, the employer, who's probably paying the project manager, should be rather upset if the project manager isn't giving the early warnings which he is required to do under the contract. I'm not aware of any case law yet. There will be one day a contractor will try and sue a project manager for not giving him an early warning, which he's required to do by 16.1. But we haven't seen it yet.
Hopefully never will.
Hopefully we never will yet.
Yeah, interesting one. I mean, ultimately, I suppose it's the employer that will suffer most because he's lost the opportunity to put on the table a matter which could have been sorted at the project manager notified at the time.
Absolutely.
Or if this thing does turn into a compensation event, then it might cost more money or take longer.
Because we didn't think about it before.
Yeah. So probably he pays the repercussions if late or no early warning.
So that's one to look out for. But back to the straight answer, there's no explicit sanction on the project manager. Okay. But these, I mean, I could have put the title there, says key links, but you could also think key links and sanctions. This is the sanction. This is the hits clause to make you do the early warning. So just have a look at what the word says then. A lot of people, just give you 30 seconds to read that. I won't read it to you because I'm hoping you guys can read.
So you really are giving 30 seconds?
Yeah, I'll give you 30 seconds out there. Have you read that now? Good.
Yeah, fine.
Because you don't need to read to you. The event is assessed as if the contractor had given the early warning. Again, giving training, getting people to read that, a lot of people struggle with that. And what we've got here is a favourite example of mine, which if I had go back a stage. If the project manager has notified the contractor of the decision, the clause to notify the contractor of the decision, we saw a moment ago, was in 61.5. So
that's a precursor.
That's a precursor to be able to enforce 63.5. Okay. So this is a real example, and examples always work best. This was a project on the, I think it was option A, but it doesn't really matter. It was on the East Anglia Environment Agency, God knows, 10 years ago probably. The employer, not unusually, said you can have power supply in this corner of the site compound. Fine. Contractor comes along, puts his cab in, plugs in his socket into the employer's power supply, and there's no power. God, flipping it, what are we going to do? What would you do, Rob? You're a dynamic, enthusiastic contractor. What are you going to do?
Notify an early warning.
Oh, Rob, that's just really annoying. I knew you would say that. Let's talk about walk into that. No, you didn't, Rob. Give me the right answer. You're going to get a generator, Rob, for heaven's sake. You're just not helping here. So we'll get a generator in, and that's exactly what happened. So a contractor gets a generator in, job went swimmingly, no problem. No problem, except that towards the end of the job, the contractor had not made as much money, or maybe lost a bit of money. What does he do? He gets his QSs to have a look, and we find some claims in old money. Yeah, claims. So this QS put in a compensation 7 or 8 months later for not having power at that power supply. Was that a compensation, Rob, do you think?
It looks like it to me.
Because the employer hasn't done what he was supposed to.
Exactly. I still maintain my notify an early warning, have a quick introduction meeting and solve the problem.
Okay, all right, just go slowly, Rob.
Okay, sorry.
Calm down. So this compensation quote was 7 weeks, £1,000 a week for a generator, £7,000. Can I have £7,000? £7,000. Sorry, £7,000 for this. Because obviously it was your fault. Compensation at £7,000. But what have we just read? We just read that the contractor is supposed to give you an early warning of something which could increase the prices. So as soon as that problem was incurred, he could have notified the compensation straight away, or 16.1 says he should at least have given an early warning. So basically 65.3 is the if you told me clause. Absolutely honestly, the employer had an alternative power supply up there.
That is 63.5, isn't it? But never mind.
I thought you checked these slides, Rob. Okay. 63.5, sorry. Okay, cross that one out. So we'll change that before they go on with, don't worry. So 63.5, if you told me we'd have had an early warning, and I would have said, there's a power supply up there. And the previous slide says, we'll assess the compensation then as if you'd given me the early warning. So what's the extra cost because of the employer hasn't given us power down here at the bottom? What's the extra cost? I'll give you a clue. It's 20 metres from there, it's 5 metres from there. So the additional defined cost for the contractor is 20 metres of cable. 30 quid. We might put a fee on there, we haven't gone into too much detail here, but never mind. So basically, I'll assess the compensation as if you'd given me a chance to help you together work out how to deal with this event.
And there is no benefit to anybody here, is there? That's the point.
No. There's no benefit.
The project has not got any better.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no added value.
What has happened is the contractor has lost 6,970 quid for not giving early warning. For not giving early warning.
Yeah.
So that particular site agent is now one of the best contractors in the UK at giving early warnings. I can guarantee. So a simple example. Hopefully that makes it clear why early warning is a good idea, but also it makes it clear what the sanctions if we don't have an early warning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
okay. So, Richard, we have terms like technical queries, TQs. We have terms like request for information, RFIs, probably other sort of acronyms.
Other acronyms.
The similar thing, and this is where usually from the contractor, he says on your drawings, in your information, there's a gap, there's a problem, something's needed. Please, can you fill in the missing words?
Absolutely, and in the industry, this is completely independent of NEC. Sorry, just one last slide there. Thanks for Henry Jones for that example from
Thank you,
NEC. Thanks, Henry. So, okay, going back a second. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, in the industry, there's just a way of doing things. Contractors have a pad of forms for technical queries, requests for information. Exactly as you said, they're not quite sure what you mean by that information. Mostly it goes back to the designer on the employer's side, but not exclusively. And some people call them TQs, technical queries, some people call them requests for information. So this slide is just talking about how they relate to this concept of early warning that we just talked about. We should also mention that if that request for information is because of an ambiguity, which you just hinted at there, Rob, there's a clause in the contract already for that. Clause 17, requirement and obligation to notify that ambiguity or inconsistency. But what happens out there in the real world is that people are firing left, right and centre, TQs and RFIs to each other. So, is that an early warning? Well, the slides here are just what I've picked up from talking with people in the industry for how these are dealt with at the moment. So some people have early warnings, and separately they have RFIs and/or technical queries. And then somebody on the contractor side monitors the response or lack of response to those requests and queries, and when they see fit, they effectively promote them up and then reissue it as an early warning. That's one way of doing it.
Well, if it escalates
to us getting to the point where they realise, back to 16.1, it might delay completion. Mainly, it's normally going to be about delaying completion because we don't know what we've got to do yet, because we need some information. So that's one way of doing things.
Okay.
The second way of doing things is just treat everything as an early warning. Okay. So just lump that in as an early warning. The third way of doing things is to keep them separate, but make them all early warnings. So it's building on the contract. Remember, early RFIs, technical queries, are not mentioned in the contract at all, but they happen. So another way is to notify them as an early warning, but on your early warning form, separately identify them also as a TQ or an RFI, so that there's a subset of the early warnings which might be being dealt with in a slightly different way. Some way of trying to manage the process. But you can see from the problem with one is that if the contractor is late giving the early warning,
Yeah.
he runs the risk
There's a
of
risk
having that 63.5 generator example imposed on him for not
Yeah.
giving the early warning as soon as he could have done.
Yeah, and people talk about administrative burdens, don't they? So I've got to notify TQ, and then at some point in time, the same thing is new TW
Exactly.
if the TQ doesn't get answered.
Yeah.
So, and also you've got potentially, you know, at least 3 different systems or processes.
Indeed. So my preference is the right-hand column. So the early warning form. If you know it's the sort of thing that you would normally have called a technical query, but you know very well it's going to go off to the designer on the employer's side, then you can just have a tick box in your early warning form to say it's technical query, and it'll go off there. At the end of the day, you're going to have another column on your risk register, TQ yes or no, but it doesn't matter, they're all early warnings and they're all going to get that. It's just helping the project manager decide where to talk about those issues.
It's the same as 2. I see 2 and 3 as being one of the same, really, because you're notifying them as an early warning. So it's like you're protecting your position.
Absolutely.
Notify as soon as you're aware. You're complying with the contract.
Absolutely.
Compliance is, of course, key. But then we're kind of pandering to people in number 3 to say, oh, but you really mean an RFI from TQ. So I'll tick a box or I'll put another annotation.
On the early stage, say particularly in the early phase and the design phase, there might be literally hundreds of technical queries, little tiny little bits and pieces. And what you don't want to do is to swamp the early warning process with all those things. So I think it's good practice to be able to filter them out in your risk register and maybe deal with them in a separate meeting with a separate bunch of people. That's my suggestion. But again, this is not NEC. This is just ways of dealing with the realities on something.
Okay. And my preference is to abandon 1 and 3.
Okay.
Just have
We've got a disagreement here.
Okay. Let me finish. Yeah. Never have TQs or RFIs because the works information is written brilliantly in the first place. That there is no need that these problems don't arise. They will generally, in my experience, arise because of lazy or poor works information.
This is where I have to pull Rob back from his nirvana. I agree, Rob, of course. We all know that. We all know that if we spent a third of the time, a tenth of the time that we spend on conditions and date clauses, if we spent that on getting decent works information, we'd have less need for it.
This again, adds 0 value whatsoever. All we're doing is doing what we should have done at some point back in time in the document preparation stage. However, being practical, you have to come up with a slick system that works for you. I'm still favouring 2 with a little, somehow denoting the fact that I haven't been quite so fearful of this because in old school language, I mean RFI or TQ.
I think it's just a tag. So if you're working with spreadsheets, you want to be able to.
I like the word tag.
Filter them out in some way. It's not different from an early one. That's what I'm saying. And that's not trying to. The idea of showing that box within the early ones, it's the same communication. It's definitely not 2 separate disciplines.
What we are in complete agreement with, though, is very dangerous with number 1 to have.
Yeah.
1, 2, or more than 1 system, have 3 systems where you might miss the point at which a TQ actually becomes significant enough to notify an early warning.
Absolutely.
And I would say in most cases, if they're significant enough to be an RFI or a TQ, they'll be significant enough to be an early warning.
Okay.
Okay, so there's no right or wrong answer. Get the right or wrong in the first place, minimise the use of these, pick 2 or 3, whichever way you go.
But then get the system sorted so that we're all playing the same.
So prioritising, isn't it? Prioritising. Yeah. What do I need to do by when? Sometimes, though, my experience of RFIs and TQs is they're very hands-off and very negative. And I as a contractor tell you as project manager in different forms of contract, here's a problem, it's your problem, fix it. Yeah. Well, that's not, there's no engagement there. Yeah. We're a million miles apart, aren't we? So I'm just telling you to plug it back in your documents.
Absolutely.
Whereas creatively, even if it takes us 1 minute, together in a instruction meeting, which by the way can be via the phone, it doesn't have to be in person, then we can discuss the problem itself. It may take us 30 seconds a minute, brilliant. It might take a little bit longer.
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, that's that one. One last slide just to read me, not quite last slide, but almost. Bad news, the whole contract, the warnings language, as Rob and I discussed earlier, seems to be predicated on, well, it is, what it says in the contract is giving warnings about problems.
Yeah.
But as we said earlier, I think as an industry, we would all do better if we're happy to share the good news, the opportunities as well. As we said earlier, there's no harm at all in notifying those, getting them logged on the system so that we can then have the opportunity to discuss and share what we might do with this particular issue. Contractor's got a good idea. Is it worth proposing it formally, or should we just have a chat first? Early warning. Why not?
I think we have with people's sanity as well, to be honest with you. Yeah. Live in a world that all we ever do is talk about and try and address problems, which is not good. It's not, we need to reward ourselves, haven't we? We need to say, that's just such a fantastic idea. So why not, you know, try and push the good news, the opportunities through this process.
Okay, because fundamentally, I think that's a summary of early warnings, really, isn't it? If we could just talk to each other, that'd be good.
So not only solve the problems, but also exploit opportunities if we possibly can. And I think there's, you know, sometimes it's one step forward, two steps back, isn't it? I think as brilliant as technology is, and surrounded by it today in this webinar, you know, it is good to talk, isn't it? And sometimes what I find with technology, it pushes us away from people interacting to become collaborative, to solve problems, exploit opportunities. We become distant and remote. We forget the art of dialogue and of communication. So be careful.
Absolutely, absolutely. NEC is not a contract to be done by email. NEC is all about talking to each other. Early warning is a key process to move on.
Okay, fantastic. So
I think that's probably enough prattle.
Talk to each other about it. So question. So this is the point where I revert to glasses. This is what happens when you get old. So. And a series of questions that we've got. So thank you very much indeed for everybody for sending those in. And we've got 20 or so minutes, so we'll do as many as we can. First question is, can early warnings be rejected?
No, I don't want you to tell me about that, Rob.
I don't want to know bad news. So project manager, can he say no thank you? We've discussed that.
We've discussed that. We said it either goes, the project manager has to put it on the risk register, full stop. Then either party can instruct the other to talk about it, or it might be talked about at the next risk reduction meeting. But there's no rejection, there's no direct response to an early warning.
Okay, fine. So does the early warning notification itself have to be in writing, including email? So back to the communications course, which you didn't really talk about.
We haven't talked about that at all. Under NEC, pretty much all the contracts have the same chunk of text in clause 13 in the ECC. Chunk of text, okay, not sure. Yeah, same words in clause 13. I'm just getting some strange looks here. I was just
worried that somebody's drinking my water.
Oh, is that the other problem?
Yeah.
So clause
Joseph again.
Absolutely. Clause 13.1 says any instruction, certificate, acceptance, blah blah blah, anything which the contract requires is communicated in a form which can be read, copied, and recorded.
Okay.
So whilst Rob said, yeah, you can pick up a phone, that's right, but to formalise it, you've got to get it in writing. Okay. Can it be in an email?
Not necessarily in writing. It's a form to be read, copied, and recorded. The short contracts talk about in writing, but this is a form that can be read, copied, and recorded. I'm pretty sure an email.
You could send them an email file either. You could chat it.
Possibly, probably. But why not? Why not?
Stretching a bit far.
Why not use the very simple form that you found earlier?
A simple form or something very similar.
Push it through and in parallel. Pick the phone up, walk to the desk.
The other, while I'm here, I'll mention the following clause, which gives a real shock in training. A communication has effect when it's received at the last address notified by the recipient for receiving communication, or if none is notified at the address stated in the contract data. And as we say this, there's far too many EC contracts out there where the address in the contract data is head office, the contractor. There's millions and one emails flying around between everybody, you know, each side of the contractual fence, and they mean nothing. So if you use that properly, if you use 13.2 and agree that we can use email, then the answer to the question is yes, we can do it email.
Okay, so longer, trickier question. So let's get this one sorted. If we put an early warning notice into the main contractor, so that's notifying the main contractor of an early warning, stating that we are waiting for this information, whatever it is, and because we haven't received it, it's now impacting the program. Shouldn't they reply? Getting confused when you said the PM puts on register.
Okay, last bit is true. PM is the one that puts the early warnings on the register.
I'm not sure in which capacity they're writing from. In fact, subcontractor possibly?
We're not sure. So
So let's tackle the question
If
by the
we're
way
waiting-
round. So let's assume it's a subcontractor. So subcontractors put a notice into the main contractor.
Oh,
It's now impacting the program.
Okay,
Should
sure.
they reply? So the main contractor needs to, well, they're not replying, but
The main contractor should sort himself out and do something.
well, he needs to follow the process in his subcontract, which is presumably, I'm doing construction subcontract.
Yeah.
He's now holding the risk register.
You know, and if it's information that he hasn't provided, which he is supposed to provide, by the works information, then there will be a conversation coming sometime shortly to subcontractor.
Which he's trying to
So
avoid.
subcontractor on the right thing. He's put in the early warning. So again, he doesn't have to reply. He might jump to it and sort it out and respond to get rid of the risk straight away. If not, it just goes on to the risk register. It'll get flagged at the next meeting. The subcontractor will say, I've got a real problem because I haven't got the reply. When's it coming? What's going on?
Okay, so we're assuming this is coming from the subcontractor, but there are effectively two contracts and two processes. My advice here is join at the dots, have a risk reduction meeting with project manager, main contractor, subcontractor.
That is a great
touch on that.
That's a really good point, having that question coming in from the subcontractor, because it exactly reinforces what we said. The process is exactly the same at main contract and subcontract level. Therefore, the poor contractor in the middle is both having to reply and work with the main contract risk register and the subcontract risk register. There are some contractors or some projects out there where those genuinely are doing that. There's no reason why they shouldn't be, but the contract doesn't require you to do that explicitly. It envisages two separate risk registers. Obviously, the risks between contractor and subcontractor will only be a subset of the risks between contractor and the project manager.
Okay, so treat them separately because our two processes, two contracts, but
get them together,
join together when you can. Absolutely. Why would you not want to do that? Okay, easy for you. This one, will all early warnings end up on the risk register?
Read the correct contract, yes. Project manager puts it on the risk register, clause 16 point something. 16 point whatever it is, 16 point sorted.
Okay, we alluded to this one. I'm not sure we addressed it totally, but should you include costs or anticipated costs within the risk register? So it's extending the risk register. I presume you could put, if you so wish to, likelihood of occurrence and severity. Severity in terms of time and cost.
You can do, and you might do. This is where we touched on, but we haven't got to slides today. The interaction. If you're in an organisation where you are required from the start, from the inception of a project, before we've even got contracts, to maintain a project risk register, small p, small r, nothing not mentioned in the contract, then that project risk register is very likely to include likelihood, costs, impact. You end up with a whole load of columns to forecast the likely outturn cost on the whole project. There's absolutely no problem with doing that, but it's not NEC, and therefore what we mustn't do is get the EPC's risk register, big R. We mustn't encumber that with too much stuff, such that it doesn't actually get used to do what it's meant to do in the contract. So that's what I would say there.
Okay.
What else we got?
So, is there a benefit to indicating the level of impact against each other? So, similar question. Actually.
Similar question. And again, so as a suggestion, is there a benefit high, medium, low? Probably yes. If we want to, as just a way of what it is it doesn't mean anything contractually, but if it helps you manage that risk register, you have a big project, you've got 200 risks on the risk register. We've all seen it. If there's 200 risks, it won't get talked about. It doesn't work. So if that helps you filter and prioritise, then fine, no harm. Sit down, each side of the table, how are we going to do this? What else do we want on the risk register columns? And then use the thing.
Yeah, my only point is, I quite like in the contracts risk register, there are just the two columns. In my language, what is it and what are we doing about it? And what are we doing about it is the most important column that we need to focus most of our attention to. I have seen in risk workshops where people spend half an hour or more arguing about the severity or the likelihood of one particular risk rather than how we're going to solve it. So, because there's nothing to stop you increasing the number of columns and things you need to considerably beige. I like to use those for quickly ranking your risk and that you shouldn't be just spending a lot of time to debating the
Yeah.
severity of likelihood. The draw, what you have to spend your time on is what we're going to do about risk, how we're going to avoid it, how we're going to reduce
And
it.
if there's a simple filter to decide which one we're talking about it, then fine.
So, yeah.
One thing we haven't talked about, Rob, not explicitly enough, which we must say, this risk register, big R, has nothing to do with risk allocation.
You sure it's nothing?
Absolutely nothing. That's why I said it 3 times. The project risk register is used by the project team in setting up how we're going to allocate the risk. May well include the column whose risk it is. That's not, has no place whatsoever in the NEC contract. Yeah. So the risk register, our risk register, today's risk register, is just about management of risk after a war, not allocation.
Okay. So the question specifically for you, Richard, in your paper, the one that's attached to the joining instructions, you say RFIs, TQs are a special type of early warning. Can you direct me where in the NEC document this is?
Okay, maybe that's a slightly dodgy language in my little article we put together on this. RFIs, request for information, technical rules are not mentioned at all in the NEC. As we said earlier, they're just things that people use because they always have done. So they're not mentioned. They are they special? They are a distinct type. And in most cases, because they're not saying there's a problem, there's a problem with my subcontractor, or there's a big storm coming. They are specifically requests for information or technical queries. So in that sense, they are special. They're a specific type of problem, type of issue. And as we explained on the slide just previously, from a contractor's point of view, he ought to be making sure those are considered as an early warning, so that he doesn't get the hit over the head with the clause 63.5.
Not 65.3? Okay, so what effective matters to be included in the risk register listed by contractor in its contract?
Okay,
part 2, tender stage have. So in contract data part 2, it says the following matters will be listed in the risk register.
Okay, brilliant. People talk about NEC as being in the present tense. Those 2 entries are the only future tense in the NEC. These 2 will be included.
Yeah.
And the only effect of those matters to be included in the risk register is to put them in the agenda for the first risk reduction meeting. Full stop. That's all it does.
Okay.
So I describe it as like a pre-contract early warning from the people putting the tender together, bidding documents together, and then from the contractor bidding. They're just things that we think ought to be talked about. Again, they're not risk allocation. A lot of people don't understand this. You know, as you've seen from queries we get at NEC, the danger, the criminal offence from a contractor, not by criminal, sorry, is where you find him saying, we have seen things like contractor puts in things to be added to the risk register, vandalism, brackets, employer's risk, close brackets, where he's clearly trying to shift the risk back to the employer. Now, if those words were included in the contract, strictly and technically, it wouldn't transfer the risk because all it does is put this item as something to be discussed.
But there's
an argument. So if you get that as a client, as an employer at tender stage, I would want those sorts of things struck out. In the instructions to tenderers that I get people to put together, we actually have a prompt to remind the bidder that he can't do that sort of thing, because that should be considered a qualification.
Okay, so there was a similar question on that I've just spotted about. One tenderer says, let's say, vandalism, and the other does not say vandalism. Does that have any impact whatsoever, the tender assessment?
Absolutely not. Not unless, no, it doesn't. Not unless, very unusually, you've got some quality assessment for how well you think the contractor is and thinking about risks at the tender stage.
But there is no risk at tender stage.
Exactly. And again, there's no risk at tender stage. All it does is put it on the agenda for chat.
These are the things that we need to avoid or reduce. Post-contract, once it's the risk register, at our risk reduction meetings. Okay, so tricky one, this one. So, in clause 63.5, does the contractor not have 8 weeks to notify the PM of becoming aware of the event? I think they're trying to link it.
You're linking things separately. 63.5 is specifically about the hit, the slap for not giving a conservation event. The 8 weeks
for not giving
the 8 weeks is the cut-off in terms of notifying a compensation if a compensation has happened. So my example, I specifically chose 7 weeks on that slide not to complicate it.
Yeah.
Because if it was 9 weeks or over 8 weeks, then it's lost all insight.
So 635 is completely irrelevant. So if it were 9 weeks.
Yeah, 9 weeks, then we cut it off straight away because it won't be a conversation because of 63.3, where we have the 8-week cut-off.
61.3, but you are getting closer.
I'm getting closer.
So what we're saying is those two clauses operate in isolation.
In isolation, as we said, compensation is early warnings are different things. 63.5 is the linkage. We'll assess the compensation as if you had given me the early warning.
Okay, when somebody says great webinar, I'm bound to read the question answer, so thank you very much for the answer for that. Is there a difference with early warnings in the PSC? Two parts of the question. One bit at a time.
Is there a difference in early warnings in the PSC? Answer no, except that it's a consultant rather than contractor. Strictly,
maybe slightly different reasons for notifying.
Sorry, subtly different reasons. So the process is exactly
the same process, subtle differences to reflect professional services contract rather than, if you like, an engineering construction contract. And how do early warnings work in practice during the design process? So we've got an evolving design, going backwards and forwards, round and round in circles, ever improving thoughts in the design. When do we early warn?
Good question. Under a PSC in the design process, then again, no, as we said earlier today, no harm at all in using the early warning for setting up a discussion about anything that's worth discussing. But as a consultant, you will be penalised, potentially penalised, for not giving an early warning if your issue comes under the bullet points in 16.1.
It's no different. You're just doing different things. One's providing professional service, one's providing design and or construction works. Different reasons for notifying early warnings. As the design evolves, if something pops up that could increase the total prices for their consultancy appointments, maybe it's option A, option E. Doesn't really matter.
It doesn't.
Notify an early warning.
Get the early warning.
It's good practice anyway. So early warnings. Well, in my simple master, I was going to get a T-shirt done on this, and let me know if you're interested in it.
You said I would say, Robert.
On the front of in my little head of my T-shirt, on the right side, sort of NEC emblem logo thing. On the front it says early warnings are good. On the back it says conversation notes are bad. Would you buy a T-shirt, Richard?
On the back I'd have 63.5 all will get you. Or something.
But they're good. They're a good thing. Surely clients want good quality, timely.
We've got the NEC marketing manager in here with us, and he's already thinking about competition for the NEC T-shirt. Carry on, Rob.
Okay, so if bullets 3 and 4 of 16.3 are deleted and replaced by a Z clause, which provides that the PM dictates after the risk reduction meeting the action to be taken and which risk can be avoided or removed from the risk register, does this damage the collaborative approach engendered by core clause 16.3?
Is that one word answer? That one,
I think yes.
Yes, good answer.
Yes.
Not quite sure what's been going on, but again, one thing that we haven't specifically mentioned is that this risk register and the updating of it, it's just a chat shop. If there is a change, if there's something that comes out of these discussions, the parties have to go back. Sorry, not the parties, the project manager and the contractor have to go back and issue the appropriate notification. If it's decided that a change is needed, project manager's got to go home and send a 14.3 change the works information. It doesn't just come out of the risk register. That's an important point. The Z clause I see quite often is something reinforcing.
Interestingly, in the contract says remove those risks which have passed from the register. I'm not the greatest fan of removing risks. I quite like your live or dead comment. So leave it all on there. It's a good audit trail. That's right, audit trail. Live or dead. Put all the dead ones down to the bottom. Keep the live ones down.
But that's just using tools to manage this project. Just giving you a column to filter.
Okay, next question. If, for example, a subcontractor is behind the programme, can a main contractor send an early warning to them? And if they don't, could LADs be applied, given that there was no early warning? Let's split it into two questions there. So, first of all, if the sub is behind the programme, can the main contractor send an early warning to them? Yes. Is it could delay completion? Sorry, you're the expert.
Yes. Yeah, we are saying so. I don't do experts. Specialists I can cope with, don't like experts.
Okay.
So yes, there's no harm in the answer early warning is always yes, it's good to talk in my humble opinion. So can you send an early warning to them? Yes.
Absolutely,
It
yes.
gets it on the table.
Why didn't the subcontractor ask that early warning? I would suggest.
Yeah. And it's a good point though, Rob. Doesn't matter who it comes from.
Doesn't
It's the
matter.
same effect. It goes on the register, we talk about it.
Yeah, we're trying to avoid the delay, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're trying to capture the fact that possibly we're in delay.
Yeah.
What can we do about it?
If they don't, could LABs be applied to the subcontractor given that there was no early warning? The LABs things again, we're jumping to different things. There might be delay damages for a start. What does liquidated mean? Nobody knows. There might be delay damages if he owns completion date. That's a separate thing. The only sanction for not giving early warning is the one we've hammered home, which is the 63.5, he says here.
Okay, so with delay damages, there was no sort of requirements precursor to an early warning or not. That's absolutely fine. A couple more as we're approaching 5 to 2. I agree with Rob. That's a very good start to a question. This one's going to get read as well. If there is a need to raise a TQ or RFI, then surely there must be a contractual obligation to raise an early warning. I think TQs and RFIs should be replaced with early warnings, perhaps add another bullet point to 16.1.
So you get marks for agreeing with Rob.
Yes.
Do we need another? I don't think we need another bullet point because it's just an issue which might cause.
I've rarely seen a TQ or an RFI that wouldn't be captured under one of those bullets. You know, if something is missing, if you don't give the information by a certain point in time, it will delay completion. It will cause the prices to increase. Absolutely. A little bit of time. If an early warning of good news is notified, does it have to go on the risk register, or is that lessons learned?
Okay.
So
as we've said before, it certainly doesn't have to go on the risk register. Hopefully we got that across. You have to do the stuff that you're required to do by 16.1. The good news, the opportunities is an option for both parties to use the risk register and the so-called risk reduction meeting. It's likely to get renamed one day as a let's have a good chat meeting. Probably wasn't going to be that, but something along those lines.
Funnily enough, I don't think you would do that.
But it's not going to qualify. But that's I don't see any problem at all in including those positives in the early warning process and the risk reduction that follows it.
I think you must do actually. I mean, if you decided that an early warning, if you notify an early warning.
Okay. Sorry, absolutely. If it's got 16.1 on it, it is an early warning. Then the project manager is obliged to put it.
But you agree that it hits one of those bullets or not is irrelevant. Early warning's been notified, put it on the risk register. How much time and effort you spend on that is down to the parties. They can spend 1 minute, they can spend 1 day, or anything in between. They can have 2 people there, they can have 10 people.
Yeah.
You need to cut your cloth according to the problem that's in front of you. Not all problems require the same amount of expertise or time to deal with them, or opportunities.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's brilliant. So that's us just about out of time. So a few more things to mention in closing. Well, probably the sprit is. Was there anything used for that one?
If not,
it would be now. If we were to build one of these fantastic bridges these days, I'm sure NEC would be used for that. So if you joined this event and there were a lot of you, best part of 1,500 people I think registered for this, which is absolutely fantastic, and we haven't broke any wires or systems, so that's good. If you're not NEC user group members, then please do have a look at joining us in the future and have a look at the membership benefits that brings. I'm sure those of you on our email list will have seen this in the last few days. We are adding to the portfolio of accreditations that are available. We have been doing the ECC project manager accreditations for a year or so now, and that's going extremely well. And we're looking to increase the portfolio. So next one's out will be the term service contract service managers, not dissimilar to the role of the ECC project manager, and also looking at the role of the supervisor under the ECC. Okay, so have a look at those as well, individually and corporately. And what are these about? These are about raising the profile, expertise and competence of our people. Finally, I think any further information that you need at our website, phone number, email address, do please contact us. Have a look at us also on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn. And
I think we're going to. This actually has been recorded. So
this will be recorded. This will be out on the system soon. Any unanswered questions? There were an absolute load of questions. Anything unanswered, we will we'll get back to you with a written answer as quickly as we can. Our next webinar is in sometime August, July. I'm told. I think it's about communication, so please join us for that. Hopefully you've enjoyed this session, and thank you very much for your attendance and of course your questions. And our biggest thanks of course goes to our experts today, which are expert specialists, plus 65.3.
Oh, Rob, that's cool. There's no need for that.
Thank you, Richard.
Cheers. Bye.